My name is Elisa. I'm a consultant at MacPhie. I hope you're familiar with the firm if you're tuning in, but if you're not, we're a boutique consulting firm based in Toronto. We specialize in helping leaders to build high performing teams. I've got my colleague Nick on with us today, and he's sort of behind the scenes master of ceremonies, taking care of business. He'll be the one monitoring the chat, which we encourage you to use throughout today's session to sort of like share any thoughts you might have, share any questions you might have. You can talk between each other. That's how we're going to do most of our participation for today. Today's session is about building trust at work. And even though many of us are not physically at work right now, I think we're in a time when this is extremely important because now more than ever, we have to trust each other. We have to rely on each other in order to find new ways of working together, even when we're not physically in the same space. So I'm really excited to share this with you today. Should only take about 20 minutes so you can get back to your lunch and have a little break in your day. I know I can hear my toddler arguing with my husband about whether or not to wash her hands. So lunch is happening at my house. Other logistics. We are going to be recording this session, so we'll encourage you to keep your mic muted and to turn off your video. I do like seeing your faces, but I don't know if I'd want my face recorded and shared. So I'd encourage you to turn off your video for that reason. But please feel free to communicate with us through the chat. And if you have any questions, even right now, go ahead and share those. So Nick, I think let's get into it. All right. So I think that we all know what trust looks like in our personal lives. I imagine that we know what it means to trust our friends, to trust our loved ones, and we have a pretty good understanding of how to build trust in those personal circumstances. But trust in the workplace is a little bit different. What does trust mean or look like in the workplace? And I wanted to start by turning it over to you guys. If you could tell me in the chat, what kind of behaviors make you trust someone at work? How do you know that you trust your colleagues? And I'll give you a sec to type some of those in. I know it can be a tough question. One of the things that come to mind for me is if I believe my colleagues are going to get things done, well, then I trust them. Anyone want to share? We can keep going. Oh, I got one. When they're dependable and transparent. Yes, Christy, you read my mind. That is a lot about where we're going, right? Delivering the best results. Thank you, Talia. Past history. That's an interesting one, Colleen. So you mean like the things that they will have done in the past working with you or things you may have heard? I think that's interesting, right? We evaluate knowing how they worked in the past. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. This is good. And so much of what we do at work is constantly being like added to that trust bank that other people have of us, right? People notice, people take note, and they remember. And it affects those relationships moving forward. So let's keep going. So today we're going to talk about the 13 behaviors of high trust leaders from Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It goes into a lot of detail around this idea of trust, like I said, that I think is now more important than ever. Now, Covey identifies these 13 behaviors of high trust leaders, but I think these are behaviors of high trust colleagues, right? Like definitely for leaders, if you're leading a team, 100% these apply. But even if you don't imagine yourself in that leadership role, I think we can all think about interactions with our colleagues where we could apply these behaviors and principles in order to build trust in like an active, concerted way that makes a difference for how our team performs. So for the purposes of today's webinar, divided these 13 behaviors into 3 categories or sections: words, actions, and relationships. And this is just so we can take this kind of 13 item list and bottle it up into bits and pieces that we can begin to understand and work through in like a logical fashion. And you'll see that some of these behaviors overlap across categories, but we've done our best to slot them in so that we have a way of approaching them. So let's get into the ones that are related to words. In this web, you'll see 6 behaviors that relate to how we speak to one another in order to build trust. And we'll go through each of these one by one. But one key theme that I want to talk about before we get into these, and that I think applies to these words category actions, but also to all of the actions involved in today's presentation, is that trust requires consistency. And I think that relates to someone's comment about past behavior. It's really frustrating, but as people, we tend to focus on the negative. I think we can all think of a time when one small thing that a person said or did eroded trust in an instant. It's really a lot easier to destroy trust than to build it up. Trust isn't built in a day, it takes time, it takes consistency. So let's keep that in mind as we go through these behaviors related to words. In order to build trust with our words, it's important to talk straight. Talking straight is about more than honesty. It's about authenticity and clarity. I know that I tend to trust people more when they get to the point rather than when they obfuscate unnecessarily around their ideas. If you saw what I did there, there was me obfuscating. But if you speak to someone directly and in a straight manner, people are going to be more inclined to trust you, more inclined to believe you're telling them the truth. Next, we've got create transparency, and this is related. So, when you tell people what you know, and also when you're transparent about how you're feeling, you build a sense that you and the other person are on the same team rather than an us versus them dynamic. No one wants to feel like you're hiding things from them. That will only encourage them to hide things from you. And again, I think we all know this, but like transparency is not about giving away all information, right? It's about being honest about what you can share and what you can't share, and about saying when you don't have information. Next, this one is huge for right now. This is confront reality. So I know personally that I'm having a bit of a rough time with this whole COVID-19 thing. It's really scary for many reasons. I feel like my daily routine has been turned upside down. As a leader and as a colleague, it's essential during this time that we balance motivating our teams and staying positive with confronting the very real risks and fears that people are facing. A strong leader sees and addresses the scary realities in a way that makes their people stronger and increases their trust in leadership. Next, we've got clarify expectations. And this one is a different one, but it's really important to execute. Everyone that you work with wants to know what you expect of them. When you set people up for when you set people up for success, excuse me, people prefer working with you and trust your leadership on projects. I'm sure we can all think of a time when we worked on a project where it was completely unclear what was expected of us. And I think we can all remember some of the less than positive feelings we had about the colleague who didn't properly explain expectations. So let people know what you expect of them. It's a really small way to build that trusted relationship and also get better results. Next, we've got practice accountability. This one is huge for leadership and people management. People want to know how they're doing, and they want to know that you're taking ownership of the initiatives you're responsible for. And I think it's important that this one is in the words category, because I'm sure that there are a lot of us who would say, well, of course I'm accountable for my work. But do you communicate that? I would challenge you to ask yourself that. The simple act of communicating that accountability, not in like an over the top way, but just letting people know, can be a big boost to your trust bank and to how others on the team perceive you and your leadership. Finally, for this category, we have listen first. Ask questions, let people feel heard, and truly respond to what they're sharing. I think that's really important now. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people are making an effort to listen to their people now, to be like, how are you doing? To check in more and build connection. Make sure that that's not just a checkbox exercise, but really listen, and listen to them the way you would want to be listened to. And that can make a huge difference. Those were our 6 actions around words. I know that was a lot, but thank you for sticking with me. If you have any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. If not, I have a question for you. Um, which of these 6 behaviors do you think is the most important for building trust? And if you want to share why, you can share why. The idea being like, if you were to take away one out of these 6, what might it be? Nick has shared the question with you. Listen first, says Christy. I think that's a big one, especially like I said, for right now, but for always, right? We're often so worried about what we're going to say. Create transparency. Thank you, Srusti. Yeah, people are full of uncertainty right now, and they want to feel like you're telling them the truth and like you're sharing what you know. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I encourage you to continue thinking about that, but I'll keep moving because I know you all want to eat lunch. Um, Next, we're going to talk about actions. So the things that we do to build trust with our colleagues. First thing we're going to talk about is demonstrate respect. All right, so I know this one bleeds into the words category, but I placed it here strategically. It is one thing to speak respectfully, and that's really important, and we should all do that. Please do not neglect that. But it is more important to act respectfully. Showing that you care about other people and demonstrating kindness with small acts can go a long way in building trust in the workplace. It could be as simple as taking an interest in a colleague's life and following up in a meaningful way that shows you remember and care. These little things stand out a lot to people and make them more likely to trust and respect you in return. These little things are also harder to achieve now that we're working remotely, right? Think about all the small little interactions at the office where you were able to sort of do this in a more effortless manner. And again, I would challenge all of us to think about how we can reach out to our colleagues in a respectful, kind, and caring way that shows that we listened in the previous step, right? And that really shows that we're thinking of them and that they matter to us. Something to think about. The next one is get better. This is big. When I give feedback to a colleague and then I see them actively working on it, and then they check in to say, am I improving the way that we talked about? I mean, you're just blown away when someone does that. So keep in mind when someone gives you feedback, don't get offended, don't file it away, actively work at it. And again, communicate that you're doing so, show that you are doing so. People love that. And it really does build trust because I feel like, oh, it was worth the effort of giving that person that feedback. This person really cares about their work. Next, we've got right wrongs. I mean, this is a basic human decency thing, but when you do something wrong, apologize and make it right. People notice that kind of humility. All right, I love this one because I think this one really highlights the difference between building trust at work and building trust in your personal life. Building trust isn't just about people's feelings. You can think someone is nice, someone can be kind to you, someone can treat you with the respect that you want, but you might not really trust them at work. Delivering result is a great example of this. I don't really have to like my colleague all that much on a personal level to trust them with an important project because they're going to deliver on time, high quality work. So that's a biggie. And finally, and relatedly, keep your commitments. If you do what you say you'll do, when you said you'd do it, it's an instant trust build. This doesn't mean that you always have to be a yes person. I'm sometimes a yes person. If you can't deliver, you build trust by saying no and then deferring or delegating the task. So a hard no can be hard, but saying, okay, I think I know someone else who could help you with this, or maybe if I could help you with this next week, is really going to build that trust. People will feel confident coming to you in the future. All right, you made it through another set of trust building actions. Thank you for sticking with me. Any questions about the actions category? Feel free to share them over in the chat. If not, again, I'll ask my same question. Which of these do you think is most impactful when it comes to building trust? Oh, Michael. Get better. Get better is hugely important, but you have to be open to receiving that feedback. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, demonstrate respect. Oh, look at this. Thanks, people. Yeah, I think the part from Sarah about having to be open to receiving that feedback is really big. And that's like a personal thing that we all have to sort of grapple with. Another thing about like receiving feedback and getting better is that you don't have to have the perfect get better response in the moment, right? Sometimes when you get feedback, it's not the best. You want to just keep a stoic face, take it away, think about it, and then work on getting better and showing that you're getting better. Keeping commitments, but you need to manage expectations up front. Yes, 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 yes. Let people know what you can actually do. Set yourself up for success and for meeting people's expectations. This is great. Thanks, guys. All right, my last category. Nick will take us there. Okay, this was the weird category. If you started, you were like, okay, Elisa, I know what you mean by words. I know what you mean by actions. What do you mean by relationships? Here's what I mean. The word stuff and the action stuff all happens in a discrete moment in time when you're interacting with the other person. So I'm interacting with you, and there's certain ways I can use my words, and there's certain things that I can do that are going to build trust, or if I don't do them, are going to erode trust. The relationship ones I thought were interesting because they're more ephemeral. They exist even when I'm not interacting with the other person, even when the other person maybe isn't there. So in that way, they're a little harder perhaps to execute, but I think very important and very interesting for us to think about. So let's go into those. Okay, the first is extend trust. And one of the ways that I heard this phrased really helpfully in a workshop that we did about trust recently was someone said, make trust your default setting. I thought that was really nice, especially in this digital age. The idea here is you don't want to make people earn your trust initially. You want to just give it to them from the start. You want to believe, because this person is on my team, because this person is my colleague, they are worthy of my trust. Now, that sounds straightforward, but in environments that are characterized by uncertainty and change, whether that's COVID-19 or just like a rapidly evolving workplace, people tend to be more fearful and defensive. It's a natural response, and that makes it hard to extend trust. But research has shown that if we're going to be resilient, the most resilient people, the people who most triumph and persevere and maintain their strength through struggle, are those who rely on other people. So in order to be resilient, we need to rely on each other. To rely on each other, we have to push past some of those feelings of defensiveness and of fearfulness, watching out for our own butt. We need to push past those and remember to extend trust, even when it's hard. And that, of course, doesn't mean that you always have to trust everyone on your team, but you want to start off trusting them. Next, we've got show loyalty. Last but not least, we build trust through showing loyalty. And the way Covey defines this, I think, is helpful and concrete. Don't take credit for the work that isn't your own. Big. Credit your colleagues even when they're not there. I like that, because show loyalty is sort of like abstract and hard, but those two things are concrete, and I can do them. I can wrap my head around them. And other people will really notice that. It's basically like do unto others as you wish would be done unto you, right? You would want someone taking credit for your work. That's what he means by show loyalty. Okay, so you made it through. I want to ask my question one more time. I know there's only 2 in this category, but like I said, I thought they were sort of interesting ones. Which of these resonates the most with you? And again, if you have any questions, just shoot them out. I'd be happy to talk about them. But yeah, between extend trust and show loyalty, which do you think is going to be most important? Extend trust. Believe once you give trust, it cannot be taken back. Yeah. Extending trust. There's some show loyalty in there too. Do people find it difficult to start with a baseline of total trust? Thank you, Nick, for that question. I'm assuming that was Nick. I know that the client we were working with were talking about how that was a struggle for their team, and it was something they were actively going to work on because they tended to be distrustful of new people coming in. Yeah. It's easier if you depend on your people, right? I mean, like I feel like that's part of the whole principle of high performing teams. We are stronger together, but we're only stronger together if we're really in it together, not if we're a bunch of individuals who are like, I'm kind of a team, but looking out for myself, and I don't really trust you to get anything done. Yeah. Thanks, Christy. And Srusty. Cool. All right. Well, Nick, if you could take us to the next line. These are the 13 behaviors that we just talked through. And you'll be like, whoa, why are these in a different order? Because this is the order that Covey gave them in. So I wanted to just share that back with you. That's what we just went through. We at MacPhie, and me personally, we really hope that this has been useful to you. And thank you so much for taking the time. Before you sign off and leave us, I would really love it if you would just take a little time, look at these 13 behaviors, and write down for yourself. You can share it in the chat, but it could also just be for you. One thing that you are going to do differently or work on doing more consistently coming out of today's session. So I want to make sure you leave with something, right? So take a sec. What am I going to work on related to these 13 in the coming days? So again, you can feel free to share it in the chat or just write it down for yourself, put it somewhere you can see it, and focus on that. And thank you so much for taking the time to think with us today. And we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, everybody.